Peace, and welcome to another episode of the Quranic Remedies, where we spend about 15 minutes exploring a page from the Quran together and seeing how we can apply the verses to our lives. And hopefully, with God's permission, it helps us heal our brain, body, mind, and soul. So today we'll be reading from chapter 2, the cow, from verses 249 to 252. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge to God from the accursed devil. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the merciful, the gracious. فلما فصل طالوت بالجنود قال إن الله مبتليكم بنهر فمن شرب منه فليس مني ومن لم يطعمه فإنه مني إلا من اغترف غرفة بيده فشربوا منه إلا قليلا منهم فلما جاوزه هو والذين معه آمنوا معه قالوا لا طاقة لنا اليوم بجالوت وجنوده قال الذين يظنون أنهم ملاقو الله كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين. And when Saul went forth with the soldiers, he said, Indeed, God will test you with a river, and whoever drinks from it, then he is not with me. And whoever does not taste it, then indeed he is with me, except one who scoops by scooping with his hand. But they drank from it, except a few of them. And when he and those who believed with him went beyond it, they said, We have no strength today against Goliath and his soldiers. Those who presumed that they would meet God said, How many a small party has defeated a large party by the permission of God, and God is with those who are patient. ولما برزوا لجالوت وجنوده قالوا ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. And when they went forth to Goliath and his soldiers, they said, Our Lord, pour upon us patience and reinforce our foothold and grant us victory over the disbelieving people. فهزموهم بإذن الله وقتل داود جالوت وأتاه الله الملك والحكمة وعلمه مما يشاء ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لفسدت الأرض ولكن الله ذو فضل على العالمين. So they defeated them by the permission of God, and David killed Goliath. And God gave him sovereignty and the wisdom and taught him from what he willed. And if not for God propelling people against each other, the earth would have been corrupted. But God possesses favor for the worlds. تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وإنك لمن المرسلين. These are the verses of God which we recite to you in truth, for indeed you are one of the messengers. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. God the Great said the truth. Now the verses here are carrying on with a story in regards to Saul or Gideon, which in Arabic his name is Talut, with David now appearing into the story when they were chasing down and they were going up against Goliath, where clearly we see right here David ends up killing Goliath. Now, there is something that's very interesting that happens at the start of the verse, where God is, through his messenger or through his king, he is also testing the people. So when people are saying to obey God and obey the messenger, when the messenger was present in front of us at that point, he, upon God's orders, he was told to not really sit and drink from the river despite them being tired. And this was an order that was issued to the people that was with Saul, and whoever listened to him, then they still stayed on the path with him. And whoever sat and actually drank a lot from the river, they ended up going against what God has ordered in that moment. And there is a wisdom behind why these issues are being commanded. But now, just to cover a few things, does that mean that anytime we pass a river, we shouldn't be drinking from it because of these traditions that have of the people that came before us? That we should just take a little small scoop with our hands every time we pass a river? Obviously not. So the wisdom here is that because they are an army and they are about to go fight, that if they overdrank water, they might not be able to perform the way that they should have been performing against the army. And there was another issue that arose, that after that they did pass the river, and maybe their hopes, some of the people's hopes have changed because they might have been thirsty and they might have been looking forward to drinking the water. And when the water was presented to them, that they were told that they can't drink it. So now they started to assume that they did not have the energy to fight Goliath, that they didn't have what it takes because they were tired. And they were saying to the people, and they were saying to Saul, that we don't have the strength today against Goliath and his soldiers. But this is the amazing thing about God, God sometimes can reveal to you something that needs to be done while your mind is not strong enough to actually undertake the task. So you think to yourself that I might not be able to do this and I'm not going to try because I feel like I would fail. This is a very simple thing that you can even see in people who go to the gym or do physical exercises. Sometimes your body doesn't give up, but yet your mind is telling you to give up. So you give up and you stop the exercise earlier than you should. It's just because you are adhering to pain. The human being doesn't like pain usually. So here, God is also showing us that people's minds need to be conquered within themselves. You need to actually believe that God is going to take care of you, especially when you're striving, because God says that He is with those that strive. So if you set out as a mission in your mind, whatever it is, if you want to accomplish a certain deed that requires a little bit of a physical effort, not necessarily fighting, don't let your mind tell you to give up, that you are tired, that you have now reached the limit, that you need to rest or you need to stop or you need to give up. Because obviously the body can go a little bit further than what you assume that it would. Now, there is this experiment that was done earlier in the 90s. It's called the Hope experiment, where there was a scientist. He put rats in water and he let them tread water to see how long they would stay in the water. And the rats gave up after 30 minutes, 40 minutes, or about an hour. And then they ended up drowning because they just didn't see that there was any hope for them. So they just drowned. And then there's another set of experiments that was done after the first one, where the rats were treading water, and right before they were about to drown, within half an hour or an hour, the scientists rescued them from the water and they let them rest for a little bit. They let them catch their breath, and then they put them back in the water for them to tread water. But the rats, instead of lasting for 30 minutes, an hour, they lasted well above 24 to 36 hours, because they, in their mind, they just got trained that somebody's going to come rescue them. So they would keep treading water. And it's very similar to the human being. The people that do not trust and rely on God, they're more likely and bigger chances that they would give up, because that concept of hope within them, it's that God will rescue them or God has their back, is just not there. It's not present because they haven't thought about God often in their lives. And the believer, the amazing thing is that you constantly think about God. So when you're presented with situations or concepts where you do need to sit and show patience and withstand, even if it's physical pain, you will try to uphold that position as long as you can until your body actually gives up or death approaches you, and death is a mercy at that point. So this is the difference between people who really believe in God and have their trust in God, between the people that say that they do, and then when the tests come, they either quickly fail or then they fail themselves by believing that they cannot do it. And there's a very interesting part of the verse here where God says that how many small party has defeated a large party. And this is where God's showing you that circumstance is not always the way that you should measure things. Because yeah, we can see that there's some armies in the world that are very massive, that they have a lot of technology, that they have a lot of strength. But when it comes down to the battlefield, that God can give the victory to whom He wants. We've seen this in recent histories in regards to the Vietnam War and other wars around the world, where there was a big force, the American force, attacking smaller nations, yet the smaller nations were able to withstand and uphold, and they won their positions. So this is something that we always have to keep in mind, that when we are with God, expect the unexpected. It's not always what circumstance has to offer. I believe that those people that do not believe in God and that they just go with whatever they think the worldly life, and they believe that they are the ones who are controlling the outcomes, they are limited to circumstances, yet God can intervene at any point, either to kind of let them carry on or to embarrass them and humiliate them. And this is a very important prayer that happens in 250. That when we are faced with circumstances where we do feel that maybe the odds are against us, or that there's a bigger people against us in regards to what we want to accomplish. Of course, this does not necessitate for it to be something that's on a battlefield. But any time you are striving in the way of God, it might seem that you might have more oppositions that you can handle. But in those moments, you really do want to call upon your Lord to increase you in your patience, to reinforce your standing, your foothold, the position that you're standing on, as long as you know deep down with what God has said, that you are on the path of truth, that you have the right, that you are saying the truth, and your opposing side is not agreeing with what God is saying, despite them how they want to decorate it and change it in their mind. You stick to the morals that God has given you. You stick to the patience that God has forced upon you as a human being, and you practice what your religion preaches as those moments. But you do really need to rely on God, because it is sometimes very difficult when these opposing forces are coming to you in ways that it seems like it's overwhelming. But even if they try to overwhelm you, they will not overwhelm your Lord. And in that, you should find some content and satisfaction and the hope that you need to really stand your ground. But calling and talking to your Lord within these situations is something that's very important. Now, in the history, it's very clear that David, he was capable of killing this Goliath, Jalut. And in return, because back then, it's if you kill the king, you become a king, from what I understand. So after, with the favor of God, who he bestowed upon David and allowed David to get the killing blow on Goliath, David became a king. And God gave him the wisdom, and he taught him what God wanted to teach him. Now, this is something that is also available to you as a believer and a follower of the religion of God, where that if you do strive in the way of God and you do put in the effort, where much of the people around you would fail or not even try, when you do achieve and you do conquer and you do get the reward that God has given you, God increases it immensely. Not only that David became the king for killing Goliath, the old king, but he also was given more wisdom and he was taught more things. And God is the one who picks. So it is not for us to really always sit and try to say that if it was this person who's in position of power, it would be different. Of course, this is only pertaining to believers, because the disbelievers, whatever they're doing, it's not going to really avail them. They're actually sitting and trying to spread corruption in the land. And this is where the verse carries on, where God does push us as believers to fight, to go against each other. He does push people to go up against people, because if evil is running rampant and no good man stood up, or no good force stood up to oppose this evil, then evil will overtake, because evil will do things that the believers do not do. Evils will cross paths that they should not cross, and just so that they would take more material, so that they would take more resources, so that they would subvert more people, and so that they would spread their agenda a lot further and a lot faster. So it is very critical for us as believers to stand up against these entities and these forces that do want to corrupt in the land. So God is pushing us against each other, so that corruption does not occur in the world in the level that is actually kind of occurring in this modern day. So one of the things that is obvious, that us as believers, general Muslims at this point, which would be the Christians, the Jews, the Sunnis, the Shias, and anyone who's adhering to a single monotheistic religion, for them to actually start to stand up against these forces and to speak up. And if God willing, by his permission, if we are able to even create factions to oppose them in the same way that they oppose us, or the same way they oppress us, which is in their physical nature and physical means, it would be something that would be very rewarded by God. And God finishes off the verses by saying that these are the signs of God. These are the proofs of God, that he is telling it to us in truth. He's telling it to his messenger, and then it's also being told to us in truth, and that obviously the messenger is from the messengers of God. The prophet is from the messengers of God, because innaka here, it's like you is referring to the person who is receiving it. Now, the verses here, they are showing you a few things that have not been revealed before. So this is why we know that the prophet is a messenger of God. Well, obviously because of the way that he describes God to us, and the clarity of the book, and how concise the book is. But here there's also parts of the story that is being revealed that has not been revealed before. So there's the concepts of the water, there's the concepts of people not wanting to fight, because some people in history, they've reworded the history to make themselves look like the victors, like they were not opposing God, when clearly they were opposing God. And God is telling us about how from the believers, there's always a group of people that always want to cause issues and cause problems. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is very clear in how God wants us to approach matters when it comes down to obedience, when it comes down to knowing who has the sovereignty within us, that God is the one who's picking the sovereignty. He's the one who's picking the leaders. As long as we are accepting that those people have more than what we have, and it does not necessitate for it to be material wishes or material gains, but rather if someone is showing a lot more wisdom than I have, or if someone is capable of addressing certain things in a way that I cannot address it, or that they have preference in the way that their body and their personalities, I do have to recognize, and I have to also recognize that this person is working for God and to be supporting them. Because when I'm supporting them and their mission, I'm at the end supporting God. So in your life, you're going to see and meet many people, I hope many people, where they are dedicating more to God than the general population and the majority of the world. And when that occurs, it is very important for you to help and support these people. Despite if you cannot support them and be there on their journey with them, you can support them by being their friends and talking to them and reminding them of verses when they are feeling certain times where they are feeling pressured. And the other way that you could support them is by showing them more love, which is supporting them with monetary and taking care of some of the bills that they have. Because it's very important for those people who are striving in the way of God to get as much support as we can. God in the Quran, later we will see that he talks about two sets of people. People who are the forerunners and the people of the right. Obviously, not everybody who's on the people of the right, which are going to heaven by the permission of God, they're not going to strive and go as far and as hard as the forerunners. The forerunners are those that rush to see if they can make things better for people, that they put themselves secondary to serving their God as primary. They give up themselves, they give up their money for the way of God so that they make this world a better place, not so that they are remembered, but rather for their God to be accepting of them. So I do pray that many of us who are watching these episodes strive to be from the forerunners. And again, it's just for the pleasure of our Lord, for our God to be satisfied with what we are capable of accomplishing with what he gave us. And I do pray that for the rest of us to be from the people of the right, where we uphold the proper morals and we do what we need to do so that we also help and make this world a better place for the people around us. Racism is something that is ongoing in the world, and people always talk about racism. But when we look at it, there's actually one race, and that's the human race, and we're supposed to be a single race. These colors and these differences is for us to be learning more about what God has created. It isn't for us to sit and say that someone is better than another or one is worse than the other. And with that said, I really hope you guys are enjoying this. We can carry on the discussion in our Telegram group, which is linked on the screen in front of you, and it will be in the description. Thank you very much, and God bless you, and peace be upon you.